Well, thank you for joining us today. I am so thrilled to have this special guest joining us. One of the things I love most about this industry is the relationship equity that it has provided to me. I have met some of the most wonderful human beings in the world through the business of network marketing. And this gentleman is certainly one of those. We met through mutual friends. We've never actually been in business together, but I have such a great respect for the business that he's built and the teaching. He's a thought leader among leaders in this industry. So I enjoy learning from him, and he's got so many great stories and so much great experience. I just love talking with him as my sounding board about topics and situations and hearing what his view and his ideas are on it. And it's nice to be able to have someone that knows a little bit about how the inner workings of corporations are that support this industry, but also knows what it's like to build a business in the field. So he's one of my mentors, one of my friends that I'm so glad to bring to you. He's been a top earner, an educator, and a speaker in the network marketing field for the past 2 decades. He's a financial star at 3 network marketing companies. He was both the first-time $1 million earner and also the first President's Cup winner. And he's a top earner in his current company. He consults for the largest companies in the industry. He currently lives in Dallas with his wife, Josie, and their 3 children. And when he's not busy building downlines and helping others to achieve greatness, he can be found doing Judo or Jiu Jitsu, or like we were talking about before the call, at the Olympic trials for wrestling, or throwing any one of several track and field implements. Those are the things that he enjoys doing for fun in his life as well. He's also an author and a podcaster. And I would highly recommend checking out his books. We'll put links into our show notes as well. So let me introduce you all to my dear friend, John Solleder. John, thanks for joining us.
Well, Laura, it is my distinct pleasure and honor to be with you both today and your great audience. So looking forward to hopefully sharing some experience, some wisdom, and tell everybody how I got this gray hair.
Well, why don't you start out by sharing your story with us and let us know what your opinion of network marketing was before you got into this profession.
Well, my story is an interesting one. You know, when I think of the Robert Frost poem about, 2 roads diverging in the woods, that's kind of what happened to me. April, ironically, this month, 38 years ago, I was about to graduate college. I went to a great university, Seton Hall University in New Jersey. And I was finishing up my education, and I was actually at what's called a Sambo tournament. Sambo is a combination of freestyle wrestling and Judo. I was competing in it in Virginia. And I was talking to a guy who was another competitor who was in the Marine Corps, who was telling me, hey, why don't you come in the Corps and work with us? You can continue wrestling and we'll get you a job, et And keep in mind, 1983, there were not a lot of opportunities out there. We were coming out of the Carter disaster of a presidency. The economy was turning around, but there were not a lot of jobs, especially for young people. So that I went back to New Jersey after that tournament. It happened to have been in Virginia. And during the drive, I was saying, I think I'm going to go in the Marine Corps. I think that sounds like a great thing. I had a lot of people in my family who had been military, and got back to New Jersey, and I was selling health club memberships part-time. And a fellow walked in by the name of Tom Husted. Tom had been a New Jersey State wrestling champion, had wrestled at Lehigh, very smart guy. And he starts to tell me about this company that he had joined. And he starts telling me that he made about $3,000 the month before, which, impressed me because $3,000 in 1983 was a lot of money. To me, it was like $1 million at that point because, I had never made any money to speak of. And he started to tell me about it. He said, listen, John, you can join us for $32. That's what it costs to start. And I said, okay, Tommy, as long as I can give you a check and you'll hold it a couple of days, I'll start it. It was nutrition. So, I was an athlete. I figured the products aren't going to hurt me, certainly. And I bought a distributor kit with this particular company for a whopping $32. Couldn't cover the check. I told him, hold the check till Friday. I just didn't tell him what Friday. But long story short, I started. And that night was very interesting because in that, it was a big box that they gave you with the supplements and what they called the career book. And the career book was a manual as we would know it today. And I went home that night. I finished my schoolwork about 10 o'clock, and I sat down with the old, yellow notepads, right? That a lot of your young listeners may not even know what they are, but we grew up making notes on yellow notepads. And I took that book out and I went to the marketing plan. And I started to draw the circles that were in the plan, and I started to put some names in those circles. And by about 4 o'clock in the morning, because I was so compelled with this book, by about 4 o'clock in the morning, I had made my first $1 million on paper. Now, I had no idea how difficult that was going to be in reality, but in my mind, my mindset said, I will be in this business, I will be a millionaire, and I will make it happen. And I forgot all about the Marine Corps and that conversation. And it was very interesting because that was April 18th, which we're rapidly coming up on. So it'll be 38 years next week sometime. And what happened from there was very interesting. May 18th, a lot of 18s in here, May 18th, I graduate college. And then President Ronald Reagan, who at that time, I was kind of like a socialist in my thinking. I didn't even want to hear Reagan speak, but my father said, hey, you worked hard for your education. You're going to get your degree. And I went from one of these guys that sat back in my chair with my arms folded, which you can't really see, I guess too great here. But anyway, with my arms folded when he started to speak. And by the end of his talk, ladies, I was at the edge of my chair because he talked about capitalism, but he also talked about mentorship. And he's talked about the fact that when he was a young man coming out of the Depression years in the early 1930s, he went back after college to be a lifeguard back in Illinois. And a wealthy man told him, they used to call him Dutch at that time, said, Dutch, listen, what you need to do is find a mentor. You need to find somebody who can teach you a business that you're passionate about. And all of a sudden I'm sitting there and I'm still looking for a job. But I had started my career in direct selling and I'd already had a little bit of success. I made some money, I made about $800 the first couple of weeks I was in that business. And I said, wait a minute, Tommy's teaching me some stuff. A guy named Mark Zuckerbrod, who was his upline, was teaching me some stuff. I was scheduled to go to my first corporate meeting in Hartford, Connecticut that next month in June. That would be the first big thing I would ever see. And I said, the president of the United States, and Reagan, by the way, had that ability to speak where even though there were thousands of people and Secret Service and media people in that audience, I felt like the president of the United States was speaking to me directly. He was telling me, hey, kid, you found some mentors, go with it. And I did. I listened to the president. And that was May. June, I went to my first big event, as I said, in Hartford, Connecticut. And Larry Thompson was doing the meeting. And Larry said, for things to change, you have to change. And for things to get better, you have to get better. And it just resonated with me, number one, because I liked Larry. I didn't know him, but I liked him from a distance because he had been in construction. My family were construction people. I had worked in construction over the years. And that message was not one I ever got at home. My family was always a family where we blamed the government. We blamed the economy. We blamed everything. We didn't do anything about it. And all of a sudden I'm saying, wait a minute, I'm getting this mentorship on the one hand. I like these products on the other hand. And on the third hand, I'm actually learning a business. I'm learning how to take care of myself. And it just kind of resonated with me. And that message from Larry, which I apparently had come from Jim Rohn, that was one of his statements. But, for things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. I said, you know what? I've been an athlete my whole life. I understand self-responsibility. I can do this. And that was it. And I started then, and I've been full-time, one way, shape, or form in network marketing ever since.
I love that story. So that was your first exposure to network marketing. You'd never heard of it before.
The only thing I remember, I do remember there was a Fuller Brush man that used to come to the house occasionally. And I'm not even sure that was network marketing, really. It was more direct sales. But I remember that. And I was a little kid. My mother bought the scrub brushes and let me, do the carpet and stuff. I think I had heard of Mary Kay, only because somebody my mother worked with was selling it. And I think I had heard of Tupperware only because we had some in the house. So, I was like, oh, okay. So, but it didn't, those being a business or somebody being self-employed in those businesses, that I had never heard that before. I never heard of Amway in April of 1983. Never heard of Shackley. Never heard of what else was out there. Neolife was out there, I guess, at that time, and a few other companies, but never heard of this industry, had no idea how it worked. I had no idea I'd be any good at it, but I knew I was liking the fact that I was learning some new skills that I could apply. And I saw the ink striking paper because I was selling product. I was recruiting some distributors. I was making a little bit of money, and I was having fun. Most importantly, I was enjoying the process.
I love
That's
it.
great. Yeah, that is wonderful, John. What a defining moment for you too. And thanks for sharing how that came about and what helped shape your decisions. So, what would you say? So, you love this industry. I mean,
Yeah.
you obviously have made a commitment to it, and it's any business is not all good. Any relationship is not all good. There's ups and downs, and you grow and you learn. But if you had to really boil it down to what do you love most about this industry of network marketing, what would you say that is?
You know, that's a great question, Laura. And when I was a kid, I did work in construction, and I had never considered going into the construction field like my family was in. But I did enjoy watching buildings grow from, the concrete being laid to the brickwork being done to the completed product. And that was analogous to when I got in network marketing and I started to see people grow. For example, in my first company there, one of the very first people I sponsored was a roofer, hardworking guy, went to work every day, put in a good hard day's work. And he started to do the business with us part time. And I'll never forget that very first month, he made about $500 extra. And it was a really big deal because he was a little older than me. He already had his own home. And he had a lot of bills. He had a young family. And I remember that $500 made a major difference in his life. So what I saw, similar to watching a building being built, were people being built. And to me, that's the greatest thing in the world. If you can give back some of your skills and help people to grow and evolve from wherever they are when they start to better, and whether that's building a business part-time where they make supplementary income, perhaps for any number of things, but the three things that come to mind, for me are, fund your child's education fund. If you have younger children, right? 529Cs, right? Put money away for your kids' education. Secondly, maybe the kids are grown, maybe you don't have children. Your retirement planning, okay? This can be extra money for that. Or thirdly, healthcare. Most of us are going to live a lot longer than our parents did. And there's going to be healthcare that's not covered that we don't want to burden our children with the expense of down the road. So maybe you fund a long-term care policy, for example, to make sure that, hey, I have to go to a nursing home or hospitalized long-term, whatever, that I'm not going to burden my children with all that added expense. So, those three things come to my mind. Other people, it might be a car payment, it might be a vacation fund. It might be, who knows, maybe they want to build a pool in the backyard after this COVID thing. A lot of people are probably going to want to stay home. So, I would think the pool business is going to be pretty good for the next few years, so whatever it is, that's an individual choice, but, we all need more money, bottom line, and to see people grow is great. But it's not really just the money. It's the self-development. It's the confidence. It's the difference in how that person carries themselves, how they deal with themselves. And, once again, I think we grow better citizens as a result of the self-development that happens as a result of building the business. The business is a great excuse to become better at self-development, to spend the time reading the books, listening to the podcasts like yours, and learning and adding and make yourself better than you were previously. And to me, that's very exciting. And after 38 years, it still gets me up in the morning because I see people growing in my current business. I have people not in my business that I work with that I help to coach as well, that, I'm watching some of their growth, and some of it is just, it's amazing what some of the people I've helped over the years are doing. And they come back and they say, well, you taught me this or you taught me that. And it's like, wow, I don't even remember doing it, but that's great that you got something out of that and you grew with it. So to me, it's a blessing, this business. In a weird way, it's almost a ministry in a way that, okay, this is the skills that I was given, that I was blessed with, and that I learned as well. I learned from a lot of different people, but when I can apply those and share those with people and watch them grow, I think we're doing something beneficial for society at large in helping people take better care of themselves financially, et cetera, et cetera.
I so much agree with you. And we see that over and over again. And that experience that you're going to learn firsthand and that self-development is priceless. It's priceless in terms of how it carries over in relationships, how it carries over in money management, how it carries over in your confidence, in anything else that you're doing, that you carry that with you, and you gain that from building a business like this in the industry. So thank you for sharing that. Let's go to the flip side. Let's talk about, I mean, I'm sure you've never ran into anybody that had an objection about network marketing, and I'm sure you've never seen or experienced anything negative. What do you think are some of the worst things or some of the misconceptions that people have, that you've encountered?
Well, it's a great question, but I would paraphrase it to this: what you're not up on, you're down on. And here's a perfect example. As I was preparing last night, reading through the questions that you'd sent over, I thought, let me tell two quick stories. I can. The first one, I was up in Colorado back in September. And during COVID, of course, couldn't travel with business. So I took a little vacation. My wife gave me a week off from home, and I just needed to get away. So I drove up to South Dakota and saw Mount Rushmore. Got snowed on, by the way, on Labor Day, which was amazing. And then I drove around the country a little bit. I went to the battlefield where Custer was in Montana, and then I drove down to Colorado. Anyway, it's lunchtime, and I go into this restaurant. And ironically, I was on the phone at the time with my friend Jason, who's the top distributor in the company that he's in. He's made millions and millions of dollars in that particular company. Spoke to him, got off the phone, said, "Hey, I'm going to go eat lunch, catch up later." And I go to this nice little restaurant outside, and there's three people sitting at a table about 6 foot away. And I hear the lady telling this couple, I'm assuming it was a married couple. They were talking about one of the companies in our industry, and I won't use names, of course, but they were talking about a company, and they were considering joining that company. And I'm by myself, so I'm eavesdropping, right? I do, natural, right? So, and they were talking loud. They were drinking some beer and stuff. So, they were speaking loud enough I could hear them. And the girl's telling them, well, nobody really makes any money in those things, only the company. Nobody makes any money. I've never met anybody that's made any money. And I'm thinking, wow, I just got off the phone with a guy who's making 7 figures and has for a long time. And I wind up going in to use the men's room. And ironically, when I come out, I'm going through my head, I'm saying, how do I approach this without being a total jerk, to just blow this girl out of the water and say, here, let me pull up my statement from my company, which I just gotten the day before for my earnings last month, and show this couple, hey, whatever you do, you should consider joining this industry. Young couple, I'm sure they need money, sure they're looking for opportunity, like a lot of young couples. And instead, they're listening to a well-meaning friend who had no idea what she was talking about. Okay. Well, ironically, I'm coming out of the men's room, my phone rings, and it's my friend Mark Zuckerbrod, who's your friend as well, Laura, who's been in the industry 41 years, earning a check with a particular company. He's made a fortune. I'm thinking, all right, so I just talked to one guy who's making a fortune, talked to another guy right now making a fortune. And as I'm talking to Mark, they got up and left. So I didn't talk to them. But that is a perfect illustration of the frustration sometimes that we go through. I don't know if that couple would or would not have been successful in that particular venture, but they would have at least given themselves a try. Maybe they would have read the books. Maybe they would have went to the training classes. Maybe they would have got the training, and maybe that company wouldn't have worked for them, but the next one perhaps would have. But because this well-meaning friend rained on their parade, maybe they're stuck in 9-to-5 jobs. And maybe now with what's gone on with the economy, maybe they don't even have those jobs. That's one frustration. The other is a funny story. John Addison, who I'm not sure what John is doing these days, but John, of course, John very well, Laura. John tells this funny story. John was at one time the CEO or COO of a major company in our industry, one of the largest. And he was going through the Atlanta airport, and he had a shirt on for his company. And the guy who checks the shoes at the airport monitoring to check the shoes and your luggage, basically, he says, yeah, I tried that thing. Yeah, that didn't work for me. And nobody makes the same thing. Nobody makes any money in those things. Now here, this guy's the CEO. Who knows what he's making, right? And this particular company's created a lot of millionaires in our particular industry over the years. And anyhow, so John goes through there and he's with his wife, and I don't remember if he's going on vacation or business trip, but nonetheless, they're off to their flight like we all are, always running, puts his shoes back on, he gets on the plane, and he starts thinking that whoever was in line that heard that conversation is going to take the counsel of a guy who smells other people's shoes for a living. Now, I'm not belittling that. Somebody certainly has to do it. But at the end of the day, it's who people take their information from. When I started those 38 years ago, my well-meaning ex-brother-in-law, okay, my sister's first husband, good man, good, still friendly with him, okay, father of my nephew and niece, okay, but he had gone to Columbia University, great university. Then he had gone to he had gone to Notre Dame, and then he went to Columbia for an MBA. So my parents were so concerned that their college-educated son was going to throw away his education and sell vitamins for a living, that they had him counsel me, and he told me all the reasons why the business wouldn't work. Well, what if I had listened to him? Now, he meant well, and he even made some valid points. But at the end of the day, I later found out he had joined a company and put the distributor kit in a hall closet. Well, I'm sorry. This is a business that you have to grow, and you have to grow with it. And if you took the distributor kit and you stuck it under the bed or in the hall closet, it's not going to grow on its own. You have to grow it. So that would be my frustration to this day, ladies, is just when people don't know what they're talking about in respect to how our business works and how great a business this is and how many lives have been changed. And not just economically. Economically is the way we keep score, but all the other ways that people have grown and bettered themselves. And perhaps they haven't even stayed in our industry, but they started to get their taste of self-development in our industry, and they carried it forward into other things that they have been successful at and perhaps helped other people along the way.
I love both of those stories. They are perfect examples. And the lunch story, oh my gosh, except I wanted to hear you say that you went over and, said something to them, because, oh my gosh, that happens all the time. And I was that dream stealer to my daughter. So I totally get why somebody is saying those things, because they really believe it. The person that was warning the couple that they wouldn't make any money, that person really believed what they were saying. The challenge is that they haven't updated their beliefs. They're basing it either on hearsay or something that happened a long time ago. And oh my gosh, those are the kinds of things that perpetuate all of the rumors. And the reason why we're doing, this podcast. I loved those stories. Thank you.
I wish too. I wish I said I went over, I sponsored them all. They all went to the top rank in my company and we're all happily living ever after. But, but it really happened that way. And if Mark hadn't called me, I had every intention to go over and just softly say, would you mind if I joined your conversation? I'll buy a round of drinks. Give me 15 minutes, because obviously this business has been good to us and our family, but it's been good to so many other people. And I don't always look, because, sometimes what happens is, you get this filter at the top where you associate with a lot of people who make great money in network marketing. And we forget that's not the norm. And it's not the norm. Like anything, real estate, insurance, automobile sales. Yeah, there's 5% of the people that make the most money. They're probably also the 5% that work the hardest, by the way, which nobody ever bothers to talk about. But at the end of the day, most of the people in our business are part-time. How many people make supplementary income to fund any of those things that we talked about earlier, or perhaps needs? Perhaps they have an elderly relative that they're helping out. We all have needs for money. So, to me, when somebody steals somebody else's dream, it's very, very unfair, because that person doesn't know what they've missed by our industry. I don't know that our industry's ever hurt anybody. I hear different stories, different times. And I guess if a company goes out of business, people are hurt. But once again, the skills are transportable. What you learn at company A, you take to company B. None of us have been married to the companies that we're in. I'm not in the first company I was in. Laura's not in the first company that she's in. Most of the people listening, if they're new to network marketing, maybe it's their first experience. Maybe that's going to be a great experience in a great company, because the companies have grown to the point where there's a lot more good ones, frankly, than there used to be. But at the end of the day, the skills are transportable. So that person would have maybe developed some skills at whatever company that was that they were talking about. And they may have done really well, or they may not have, but they may have said, hey, I can do this. And maybe they needed to find a company that they were more comfortable with the products or the pay plan or whatever it happened to be, but that person was robbing them from their dream, unfortunately. And it's just the wrong thing, frankly, to do.
It is. Well, so you've seen a lot of people in this business, I'm sure. some that have been successful and some that have not. What do you think it takes to be successful in network marketing?
I think number one, when I go back to when I started, I had a burning desire. I just had my belly was just filled every day with fire. I got up in the morning ready to work, and 10 o'clock at night, I was still working. That's number one, is to have that burning desire. Number two, to have some sort of a definitive daily method of operation. How are you going to work your business? If you went out and you bought a McDonald's franchise or a Subway or something like that, there's an owner's manual, right? What you do. They even send you to school to learn those things in those companies. And in those cases, you've spent probably seven figures to be in that business. Our business, because it's normally, $300, $400, $500, $600 to join, it doesn't have a big financial outlay. But what people forget is that they still have to have a daily method of operation to build it every day. Inclusive in that is going out and talking to people on a consistent basis about your product and or your opportunity. And to do that consistently, to have like the 10 penny principle, for example, that I was taught, that goes way back to the 1950s and 60s when the industry first started. Put 10 pennies in your left pocket. Every time you talk to somebody about your product or opportunity, shift one to your right pocket. And if you do that 10 times a day and you do that religiously, it becomes what? A habit. Now, after 38 years, I don't need to have 10 pennies in my pocket. But when I started, I said, hey, if that's the way you do this, then that's the way I'm going to do it. I put 10 pennies in my pocket and I talk to people in every organization I've built. And it's been 5 now over the course of 38 years that I've gotten to the top rank in. Every one of them, I used the 10 penny principle when I started to get that nucleus of people into the business with me so I could build a team. So that would be the second thing, is to have that daily method of operation. And the third thing, honestly, is to have a goal. Okay. And the goal doesn't have to necessarily be something crazy. Okay. The way I categorize goals is, what's my long-term goal? And then I work back to my short-term goal. Okay. So what I mean by that is, when I started it in the business as a young guy, I knew that someday I would be this age. I'll be 60 next month. And I knew I had to fund my retirement. Okay. I knew even that back then that I was never going to retire on Social Security. It was never going to be enough money. And who knows if it'll even be there when I get there. So I knew I had to fund it. So at 25, I started to put money away for my retirement. I was very, very disciplined on a yearly basis. And I've done that from 25 till now. And I'm still doing it. And point being, that was one of my goals, because to me, it was like, hey, at some point when I want to not do this anymore, I want to know that I can continue to live in the same fashion that I've lived all of these years. And I'll do network marketing till I drop, by the way, because I enjoy the business at this point. But point being is, like, I had that goal. So that was my long-term goal. My short-term goals were activity goals. How many people did I need to sponsor this month? How many new customers did I need that would try the product? And some of them would segue into becoming distributors later. So I always had activity goals, because to me, it always never made any sense to me when you go to somebody's home and they have pictures of Rolls Royces on their refrigerator, and then they don't talk to any people that day about their business. Okay. Well, you don't need a Rolls Royce, by the way. But at the end of the day, they have this crazy, big, hairy, audacious goal. But they don't understand that the way that you achieve a big, hairy, audacious goal is one little baby step at a time, each and every day, talking to people about your product and your opportunity. That those little baby steps over the course of time accumulate, and you get one here and you get one there, and all of a sudden you have a team, and all of a sudden, hey, that goal is in sight. They have to understand that it's those daily activity goals that are going to get them where they need to ultimately be.
I love that. Yeah. Go ahead, Janine.
No, I was just going to say the same thing. I love your stories. Oh my gosh, I just love them.
Yes, yes. He's had so much great experience. You see what I mean? I mean, he experience, and for those of you that are listening out there, that's what you gain when you go out and take action. And you do, even if you're doing things imperfectly, or even if you don't feel that you have the confidence to be me, or to be John, or to be Janine, in whatever it is, or who your mentor is in this industry, that's okay. We all learned by doing. And I know myself, I learned the greatest things in the unexpected ways. I didn't go out with the intention I was going to learn something, but I did, and that's the way I've always looked at it. And I know that's where you build a bank of these experiences and stories, because you're out doing, you're in the arena, you're not on the sidelines. So thank you, John. I want to close with a couple of fun questions. Before we do that, is there anything else that you would want our listeners to know about this industry, or what they should consider if they're evaluating a business in this industry, before we go into just a fun wrap up?
I would say this, that number one, be open-minded. Number two, find something that fits you. Okay. There's certain products that fit all of us. Okay. Like the product that I happen to market, I'm very, very comfortable with it. I understand it very well. It resonates with me for a number of reasons. Okay. But that product may not be right for you. Find the product that you feel that you would buy. And here's the key, that you would buy as a retail customer if there were no commissionable opportunity associated with it. In other words, if you would spend your hard-earned money to buy that product, okay, and take it, whether it's a nutritional, whether it's a skincare, whether it's a service, that you would spend your hard-earned money for it because you see the value in it. That's what other people are going to see the value in when you present it, that you're going to believe it. You got to be believable in what you sell. Okay. So find something that you're comfortable with. There's a lot of choices. There's a lot of good companies, frankly. There's a lot of companies that have really figured it out. The industry has matured to the point where there's a lot of good folks running companies that, just find a good company, but find the product that you're really comfortable with marketing, because that's, that's what you're going to be talking about on a daily basis. So you better have a love for it. If you don't love your product, it's going to be really hard to love everything else about your business.
So good. So very good. Being a raving fan of what it is that you're representing, for sure. For sure. So John, just to wrap up for fun, what is something that is making your life easier these days? Or, it could be a gadget, a book, recipe, whatever. What's something that's making your life a little bit easier?
There's a few things. First of all, Zoom. Speak of the devil there, where are we? Zoom. I'm not sure if those people were ahead of their time, but what timing with what's gone on here, to be able to still be productive every single day in my business, because I can look at people and all over the world. I've done, just this week, I've been on calls in Mexico, in Italy, in Germany, Canada, here, of course. Got a call this weekend with people in Bermuda, for example, where I can't get to those people. In the past, hey, I would love to be on an airplane, and I was a guy that loved to fly. Well, I didn't really love to fly after a while, but I love to get there, let's put it that way, and go to another city, check in the hotel, do the big meeting, do the breakfast meeting the next day. Can't do any of that right now. Maybe never again. So Zoom has been a real blessing, frankly. Secondly, WhatsApp. WhatsApp is a great app. I've been able to build a number of different groups to communicate about my podcast, about my books, about our opportunity meetings, where I have different groups, obviously, for different things, because obviously my books and podcasts are generic. My business obviously has other people, some that are in all three groups, obviously, but WhatsApp, it's been really, really good. I've been using Telegram lately. Telegram is another thing that has popped up. And I'm not sure who creates all of these things, but at the end of the day, for our industry, I'm like, wow, they're thinking of me when they make this stuff, because we have to communicate. If you don't communicate with your people, like anything, hey, don't talk to your kids for 6 months, see what happens, right? So you got to communicate. So those things have really helped. Secondly, doing these podcasts, both being a guest on other people's podcasts and doing our own, Leaving Nothing to Chance podcast. That's been something really, really good, because we've been able to create a curriculum, if you will, for people during the pandemic, where they've got something, once again, to tie into. And what's been great with that, Laura, and I'm sure you're experiencing this as well, is not just talking to people in my company. Because with the podcast, I'm able to talk to great leaders like yourself and Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Thompson, Simon Brooks, Fraser Brooks, Arlene Lowy, all these great leaders, Karen Ford, I interviewed yesterday, et cetera, all these great leaders that are in other great companies doing wonderful things. And they're sharing their information, both with my distributors, which is helping my business to grow, but we're also sharing it with, we're sharing things back and forth with, their distributors. So we're all helping each other. So it's almost become like the old $1 Million Round Table in the life insurance business, where the leadership is saying, hey, I don't care what company you're in. What's important is that we all grow and we all have an opportunity. And there's this humongous shelf of people out there that need opportunity. Sure, I wish they were all my company, but reality is they're not going to be. Wherever they are, that we're helping them to grow. So I think these podcasts are just a wonderful, wonderful tool. And then the other thing is, of course, we've got a couple of books that we've written. So a lot of times with my new folks, I just say, hey, go up to Amazon, and buy either one of our books, both of them if you want, Moving Up 2020, which doesn't show for some reason with this backdrop I have. It's called Moving Up 2020. And that came out in 2020. And Leave Nothing to Chance, which is the name of the podcast as well. And what I use those two books for, the first one kind of has methodology in it. It's kind of got the penny principle, for example, the daily method of operation, the how-tos, if you will. And then the other book is more the philosophical reasons to build a business. So what I do with my new distributors, I say, look, read the books, okay, and then let's talk, because I'm going to answer 98% of what you're going to ask me. I'm going to answer 98% of it there. It's that other 2% that's probably really important to you, but let's not go over stuff that's redundant that you can read. And, one of the things I have always espoused is that all leaders are readers, and vice versa. All readers are leaders, right? And I've traveled with some of the biggest and the best people in our industry, but I've also traveled all over the world, and I've been on airplanes with people from other industries that you recognize, celebrity type of people. I don't mean Hollywood celebrities. I mean celebrity CEOs, celebrity, salespeople, celebrity preachers for that matter. And everything I always see is they got their face in a book, and, the answers are there. And, to me, if you're not a big reader, become a big podcast listener. Okay. Go to the gym, bring your phone. Okay. Don't watch ESPN or CNN. Plug that thing in, get your cardio, and get your 45 minutes or an hour of a great podcast that's going to help you to grow. Watching those things on TV is not going to help you to grow. Matter of fact, they'll probably just get you mad. Okay. Always be feeding your mind. Ben Franklin said, empty the coins of your purse into your mind, and your mind will refill your purse many times over. I think that's a good logic. And I think we're at that point where there's so much great information that you can read or that you can listen to. Just take advantage of it, avail yourself of it. So, we're going to see people grow. We're going to see people come into this industry, by the way, during this time frame that, like ourselves at some point, never knew anything about it, that all of a sudden 2-3 years from now, we're going to have these brand new careers. They're going to do really, really well. The growth in our industry is ahead of it. I mean, it's already a huge industry, but the real growth is ahead of it. And I think some of this pandemic is going to feed that, because a lot of people have realized, hey, corporate America is just not going to be the same. If you owned a business, a bricks and mortar business, not going to be the same. If you were senior level management in a bricks and mortar business, probably not going to be the same. A lot of people are just going to be hesitant to go out and run around even when this thing's over, because, maybe what's next on the back end, right? So they're going to become dependent upon reading and listening, mostly from home, and self-educating. And self-education, I mean, we had a president named Abe Lincoln. He was self-educated, did a pretty good job. So.
That is great. I love that. And I love that Ben Franklin quote. Thank you for sharing that too. So one of the things I love about this industry is, yes, it has created income and wealth, generational wealth for so many people. And I find that folks in this industry are very generous and pay it forward and give back. So I like to feature, and I like to close with, what is something that you're giving back to? What are some causes that are important to you that you're giving back to?
Well, we've always been, part of our church here in Texas. And, so we do tithe 10%. Okay. That's like, give the Lord what's the Lord's, number one. So that kind of goes without saying. Okay. But second to that, what we found over the last number of years is we have a lot of people that come to us for different contributions. Okay. And we have a number. I won't share that number, but we have a number that we cap everything at. Okay. But we help a lot of people that get in circumstances, perhaps financially or health-wise, a lot of health challenges, of course, we're willing to help. Okay. For example, I interviewed a great lady here about 2 months ago who had done this swim. She's done she swam the 7 oceans of the world, believe it or not. And when she did, she noticed that there were children in Hawaii. This was in, oh boy, I forget the island now offhand. I think it was Molokai, it's called, that have cleft lips. And here she's doing this 21-mile swim, if you can imagine that. She gets out and she sees that there's a need of these children. And so we wound up saying, hey, like, what's the charity? We wound up, helping that charity out, for example. Okay. So, we're kind of, we've been blessed. So we would like to help other people, however we can. That's one way. And the other way, of course, is that because I'm getting to my later years, which I hate to think about, because I am getting there, that's partially why, believe it or not, we started the podcast as an education series to kind of teach people not only what I know, but what my colleagues know, so that they constantly will have every single week, almost like a university type of podcast where they have stuff that they can take from it that they can apply to their business. Now, sometimes that goes past business. Because, hey, our business is a microcosm of our life. The macrocosm is our life. The microcosm is our business. So sometimes people share stories or information that's beneficial. Okay, like that particular lady, Mariel Holly did with us, for example, where you go, wow, I never even knew that. I mean, I know what cleft lips are, but I never knew that there was such a need, frankly. And a lot of these things are underserved. So people hear about things like that, perhaps that they want to go out and help themselves. Or at another level, okay, business wise, where we help people to, learn how to fish. Okay, as opposed to handing them a fish. I believe in teaching people how to fish. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that we are at a critical time here in North America, the United States and Canada, and Mexico for that matter. We're at a critical time. We're at a very critical time coming out of this pandemic that people need to learn how to fish. Okay. And, once again, I feel like we're giving back, and also the messaging. The people who handle my book is Tremendous Leadership, which was founded by Charlie Tremendous Jones, who I'm sure you both know of, and his daughter Tracy has become a good friend. She runs that company. But one of the things we talk about all the time is reading. So, for example, on Thursday nights, I started a reading club, and it's generic again. And we started out, okay, the first book we used was our book, Leave Nothing to Chance, and then the second book that we used was. Here it is. This little book here that everybody should read. This backdrop's great to promote my show, but it's lousy when it's put anything up because people can't see it. What I'm holding up is The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. Okay, so we did that. And of course, my friend Dan McCormick works with those folks. So we had Dan on our last call. We go about 5 or 6 weeks going through content. And then the last call, he had Dan on to speak about it because he's obviously very familiar not only with the book, but with the Mandino Foundation. Right now, we're using The Seasons of Life by Jim Rohn. And I think we are at a season, if you haven't read The Seasons of Life, folks, read it. It's a simple read. You'll enjoy it. But the metaphor about spring, I think, is so important psychologically right now with where we are coming to the hopefully tail end of this pandemic. Okay, that people realize that, spring is here, not only because it is on the calendar, but that it has to be mentally, that we all have to get back to, hey, opportunity is ahead of us. The worst is behind us. Let's go forward as a nation, as individuals, as church groups, as network marketing groups, as whatever you're involved with, that we go forward and that we have the right attitude. And I think, The Seasons of Life certainly sets that up very, very well, that, we're all given an equal amount of seasons every year. Right now, springtime is here. Opportunity lies ahead, not behind.
Oh, thank you so much, John.
I hope a lot of people listened to this episode. It was filled with wisdom. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really love the giving back that you're doing of the book club. And that is something that anybody can do, is, take the folks that you're connected with and offer to do a free book club where you're studying a personal development book. You'll learn something from each other. You'll grow together. And I do absolutely believe that rereading some of those classics is great, a great reminder for each one of us. So thank you so much. We're looking forward to putting your links to your podcast and your books in our show notes. And again, we just want to say thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you both. You're listening. What you're doing is a blessing to people. Most importantly, people need the messaging, what you're doing, and the theme of this show to educate people about this incredible industry, because it is life-changing. We've seen so many lives, as you both have as well, that have changed as a result of people getting in, and maybe they got in for all sorts of different reasons. Okay. Financial is probably, the top of the pack 9 out of 10 times. But at the end of the day, when they grew themselves, and maybe there was a life circumstance that they learned how to manage as a result of being exposed to the self-development, right? The books like The Seasons of Life, or Acres of Diamonds, or we go through all the great, right, that they never would have heard of if they had just worked a traditional 9-to-5 job. Because last I checked, the 9-to-5 jobs, the boss doesn't come and say, hey, I really am interested in your development. Well, in our business, we're interested in your development. So be part of it, even if it's part-time, folks. For those of you listening, even if it's part-time, these ladies are doing a great job in leadership. Engage, listen to their show, listen to everything you possibly can, read everything you possibly can. And last thing I'll say is read and grow rich.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.